Hi, everybody. I have known Kikanza for what, 15, 20 years now, I suppose.
Yeah, it's about 20 years, I think.
And I have learned a great deal from her over the years. I humbly hope that that's mutual.
It is indeed.
But I have come to have a great love and respect for her, and um, as a human being and as an expert. And as those of us at ASI contemplated our mission and what we could bring to the membership, issues around inclusion and diversity and respect for cultural, racial, religious differences have come up a lot. I have to say that I always thought I was very sophisticated and knowledgeable about such things because I had a very diverse upbringing. But people like Kikanza, and especially Kikanza, have constantly, my interaction with them has always reminded me how much I don't know and how much more there is to learn about difference and how to relate to people who are not like ourselves. And we thought this is an important subject in contemporary spirituality. And so I immediately thought of Kikanza, who I know to be not only a deeply spiritual person, one who is very traditional in some ways and very non-traditional or trans-traditional, even iconoclastic in other ways, but also separate from her ministry, is an expert in cultural competency. She has written books about inclusion and diversity. She consults with organizations, both secular and spiritual, about being more inclusive and how to manage diverse populations. And so I thought she was a natural to invite to speak to us today and interact with this particular group. And so I give you Kikanza Nuri Robbins. Thanks for being with us, Kikanza.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I am looking forward to hearing from you all and learning a little bit about who you are and where you are and what you do. What I thought I would do is to offer a few words to sprinkle the to sprinkle some thoughts and ideas, and then we would have a conversation. I strongly believe that change takes place, especially the change that I'm involved in, one conversation at a time. I used to think I was going to change the world, and now I know that I might be able to influence the corner of the world that I'm in, just one conversation at a time. So I would like to offer these thoughts, some thoughts, and then hear what fits, what doesn't fit for you. I remember years ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago, I was talking to my bishop and saying that I was complaining about, I was lamenting the fact that I was in a pretty homogeneous congregation because they made me. And I didn't want to be there. And I said, I don't want to be the one who brings the most to the table. And I really want to be in a culturally competent environment. And I don't think churches can be culturally competent because by definition, they exclude people and they say, you're right and you're wrong. And she thought that I was kind of nuts. And so I have continued over the past 20 years to be dropped lower and lower and lower on her list of people for whom she has any esteem at all. I don't think I'm even on the list anymore, which is okay. So I thought that I would suggest to you the 5 big lies that I'm aware of that are barriers to diversity and inclusion and belonging in this particular social environment that we find ourselves. I think that central to the ideals of American values is an assumption that we all are equal and we all have equal opportunity. And I think that that belief is one of the great American lies, because never, ever were all people perceived or treated equally. And because of that, never ever have all people had equal opportunity. So one of the first things that we need to be clear about is the difference between equality and equity. Equality is giving everybody the same thing. Equity is giving everybody what they need so that they might end up being in the same place, or being able to compete or engage comparably with others who are not like them. It's kind of like the way you line people up on a track for a race. You don't line them up this way, you line them up this way, because the people who are on the outside track have the furthest to run. If you have kids, and if you have children, more than one? Do you have animals? More than one? Do you treat them all the same way? Do you treat them equally? No, they'd run you out the house if you did. It's the same thing. So, that's the difference between equality and equity. You give your love in a way that the people can appreciate it and understand it. Same with the concept of fairness and justice. Fairness, in my mind, is, first of all, a false concept, but basically it means that everybody is equally inconvenienced. Justice is that people get what they need. People get what they deserve. People get what we have to offer. So treating everyone the same way leads us to the second great lie, and that is that the golden rule works. Do unto others the way you want to be done to is interpreted to mean treating them the way you want to be treated, which presumes that everyone is like you and everyone wants what you want. Which, if we go back to your kids, if we go back to your partners, if we go back to your animals, is not true. And yet we think, oh, well, I'm modeling for them how to treat me, or I did this for you, and so you should have known that that's what I wanted for me, or I treated you just the way I want to be treated. Just simple things like, I've worked really hard to get to be this old, and I do not want a 25-year-old who has not been introduced to me calling me by my first name in public, for example, at the doctor's office. And yet nor do I want a salesperson addressing me like we've been good friends for the last 30 years when we haven't even been introduced. But some people love to be addressed by their first name. They don't want to be called Ms. or Mr. whatever. And so, that's a very simple difference, but it sets us up when you don't get addressed in a way that's comfortable for you. It sets you up for not receiving what else is going to be coming your way. And so presuming that people want what you want is second great lie. A corollary to that is that everyone who looks like X or identifies as Y is all alike. And so I can't tell you how many times someone has said to me, oh, Kikanza, I know an African American. I met one at blah, 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 blah. Do you know her? That's just as ridiculous as me saying, oh, Alan, I met a white guy the other day. He had a beard just like yours. Is he your brother? just because people look alike doesn't mean they are alike. There's diversity within groups as well as between groups, and probably much more diversity within groups. The groups are not monolithic. And that leads us to the next slide. And that is that we are more similar than we are different. And, that's an assumption, and it's probably, there's a lot of truth in that. But the lie is, so it's better to focus on how we are alike and not to talk about the differences. That's the lie. It's better to focus on how we are alike, because it leads to presuming that people have similar experiences and respond to those experiences in the same ways, which leads us to the lie of, well, if I can do it, then you can do it. And what you can do has very little to do with my ability or motivation to do the same thing. And so it applies to things like bootstrapping. Well, I figured it out for myself, or how I got to this place, or how I learned about this organization, or how I figured out how to fit in. Just because it was easy for you or hard for you doesn't mean others are going to have that same experience. So it speaks to the value and need for diversity, because we can only see what's behind our eyes. And so if all you know about how to engage in an organization is this way, then you need other people who've had other experiences so they can talk about the different ways that we engage and learn to become members of an organization, of a community. And so it takes me back to the most misinterpreted line in the Christian Testament, the golden rule, do unto others. Some of my colleagues have set aside the golden rule and encourage people to follow the platinum rule, which is do unto others the way they want to be done to. So when I'm with Christians, I encourage them to focus on the greatest law in the whole Bible, to love God with all your heart, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, there's no need to focus on the God part. It's important, however, for all of us, I believe, to lean into the core values that shape and inform your understanding of the world, and then lean into your neighbor with kindness. So who's your neighbor? In my opinion, anyone who shares the planet with you. We're all connected to one another's, and we're all connected to one another's neighbors in this very complicated web of humanity. We all belong to something greater than themselves, and we all belong to one another. And so if we don't otherize people, if we don't think about us and them, if we don't think about those people who are so different from us, but rather those people who are part of our neighborhood, who are part of our community that we haven't met yet, it makes it a little easier to pull people in. Now, the concept of belongingness has become one of the hottest concepts in organizations, especially in response to the social unrest last spring. I've been helping people to get along for a very long time. In the 60s, we called this work human relations, and then it became race relations. And then in the next decade, it was diversity, and then diversity and inclusion, and then diversity and inclusion and equity. But we don't say DIE because in that order, because the acronym doesn't quite work for what we're trying to do. And then in the past year, because of the work of people like Brene Brown and the neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman, we're talking about diversity and inclusion and equity and belonging. I call it social justice. That's what I call it. So remember Maslow in Psych 101? And Maslow's triangle, Maslow's pyramid of his hierarchy of needs. And so at the bottom was safety and security and your physical needs, and belongingness was someplace in the middle of the triangle. And then up at the top was love and esteem and self-actualization. Well, people like Brene Brown and Matthew Lieberman are saying that Maslow got it wrong, that we are indeed all on the journey to self-actualization. However, our brains are hardwired to belong. If we don't belong to someone, our needs are not going to be met. If we don't belong, those basic needs won't be met. And so think about all the places where you know that you belong. Think about the places that you would like to belong. Think about all of your identities, gender and generation and ethnicity, your occupational identity, your spirituality, your expression, where you were born, where you grew up, where you went to school. See, we define ourselves by the groups that we belong to and the groups that others think that we belong to, or the groups that we want to belong to, or the groups that we feel we belong to, but that silence and marginalize or exclude us. So to participate in the creation of a community, and one of the phrases that I'm hearing a lot these days is our beloved community. So whatever that means to you, to participate in the creation of a community where people have this sense of belonging, where we feel seen and welcomed, it means to draw a circle that pulls people in, not pushes them out. It means to not call people out when we disagree with them or we feel that they're factually or morally wrong. It means that we call them into a conversation, to an environment of belonging. See, in the best of families, in the best of relationships, when we have a problem with someone, we say, come, sit. We need to have a conversation. It's not a debate to convince them or convert them. And it's not an opportunity to bully them into accepting our truth because, as I said, the truth is just what we can see. But rather, calling someone in is to inform, to explain, and to listen, and to create an experience so that you can understand each other better. Sometimes understanding things that you might otherwise not understand unless you had this conversation. So the goal is not to agree to disagree. The goal is to agree to understand why you speak this way, why you did this thing, why you are engaging in this way. The goal is to create a vessel that's large enough to hold what may be disparate ideas, because just because you disagree doesn't mean that one of you is wrong. Most of the time. There are some times when absolutely you are wrong and I am right. And yeah, most of the time I am right. But we need to at least act as if there is a possibility that you might also be right as well. Because otherwise we fall into this binary thinking. And we in Western society have been taught to think in this polar way. If it's not off, then it's on. If it's not up, then it's down. We either go here or we go there. See, life is messy and complicated, and it really doesn't work with a toggle switch. We've learned that about this concept of race and ethnicity. We're not just one or the other. We've learned that about gender identities. We've learned that about sexual orientation. We're talking about continua of identities, not a segment or a point or one thing or the other. So we know that it's not a toggle switch about most important ideals and values. And if we move away from binary thinking, we give ourselves room to learn and to grow and to change our minds. If we move away from binary thinking, we create a room that's going to accommodate more people. And if we move away from words like accommodate and tolerance and acceptance, and shift to words like engage and welcome and grow, then we've created an even larger vessel. Most of the organizations I work with want to do something about diversity, but they don't understand that it starts with self. See, first you've got to be clear about who you are. What are your identities? I'm working with a group now that invited me to teach them how to use the lens of equity to do their work. Well, it's not a recipe. It's not, I don't have a cookbook or a list of rules. It's an attitude. It's an approach. It's a point of view. And these are young white scientists, highly educated, who say, oh, well, we don't need to talk about us. We want to talk about them. Well, you can't do this work if you're not willing to talk about yourself and identify who you are. So first, what are your identities? And so in the 70s and 80s, folks used to say, well, I'm just Heinz 57, or I'm just a regular American. Tell us about you, Kikansa. Well, it doesn't work that way anymore, because we all have different identities and we need to be able to talk about them. So identity is, I know who I am and I'm comfortable talking about that. Diversity is recognizing that everybody is not like me. And justice, the attitude of justice is recognizing that people are treated unkindly because of their identities. And then we move to action. So this is the social justice piece. We move to action. So what kind of actions can you take? You don't have to march out in the street. And I'm looking at many of you who are probably baby boomers like me. And so, we're too old to do that, to march in the street. I can't walk and carry a poster and not expect to fall down or to get so tired that I want somebody to help me. And it's dangerous out there. So we have to do other things. We can think about things that we can do individually, and we can think about compounding our actions to work collectively. But the first thing we can do is to be a witness. I saw that. I saw that. That was a great thing you did. I saw that. Are you kidding me? Do you really think that's okay? Just a witness. I saw it. To speak up. So many times people get away with bad behavior because people don't speak up. I've had clients who come to me and say, Kikansa, we really need your help. Such and such a thing happened. I said, well, what'd you do? Well, we didn't know what to do. So they didn't do anything. So when did this happen? 3 months ago. And so you've got to at least speak up. Like, that was wrong. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do about it, but that was wrong. And so you're on notice. That was wrong. We're going to have a conversation. So a witness, and then an ally. If nothing else, you say to the person who you see has been wronged, I'm really sorry that happened to you. I'm really sorry. I can't tell you how many times, well, no, I probably can tell you a number of times I've been in situations where people were saying things to me that were unkind, unfair, unjust, blatantly racist. And I was in a situation, it was, I was dancing and didn't want to take the risk no, I choose my battles. And it wasn't a battle that I needed to fight in that moment. But a colleague standing with me said, I saw that, let's get out of here. And then whisked me out of the room and then got angry for me. And said, I can't believe they would say that to you, or they would think that that was okay. And that made a big difference. Just knowing that I have an ally. Phil and I are in a group together, and there's another member of the group who's been a strong ally to me for years. And oftentimes he'll text me or he'll give me a call after a meeting and say, can't believe they did that again. Or even in the meeting, I'll say something, nobody hears what Kikanza says, and then our friend says something and everybody thinks it's a good idea. And then he'll say, yeah, that's what Kikanza said 15 minutes ago. So being an ally is a wonderful thing and much easier than marching in the street. And then we can advocate. We can advocate for change, and we can advocate for change in many different ways. So being a witness, I saw that. Being an ally, I'm sorry that happened to you. Being an advocate, I'm going to work to make a difference. I'm going to work to make a change. So if your organizations are homogeneous, your life might be that way as well. So if you ask, how can I bring people of color or people with disabilities or members of the LGBTQ plus communities into the organization, I would say, are they in your life? And if you don't have any in your life, then I don't know how you can bring them into the organization. You can't go to the store. You can't order them on Amazon. It has to be an organic, an authentic thing to bring folks into your life, bring folks from your life into the organizations. So if people come into your organizations, you need to understand, no, not if, when they do, that it's not you have to adjust, and it's not an adjustment like when you have an unexpected guest. When you invite someone to your home for a few days, you are okay with them doing things not the way you do them, or doing things that are uncomfortable, or sitting in that chair, or using that glass that only belongs to one member of your family, because you know they're going to leave. But if you are inviting someone to become part of you, to belong to the community that you're in, it's like bringing someone into your home who's going to live there and be a part of you. And so you take the time, you think before they come. So what's important to us and what do we need to tell them? You assign someone to help with the induction, and you start with, this is how we do things in our family. In our family, we don't come into the kitchen without a robe on. In our family, in my house, we don't talk to Kikanza until she says good morning. And it may be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but if she hasn't said good morning, don't talk to her. And so you tell people how we do things here. In this group, this is how we do things, and understand that everybody makes adjustments. It's not just the new person. Everybody's going to make adjustments. And so you share this information that is, well, everybody knows, or it's common sense. If you can start a phrase with those, if you can start a statement with those phrases, then you know this is information you need to share. These are cultural codes. These are the ways that you do things in your organization that need to be explicit. And the more you're able to share, the more explicitly you're able to share who you are and how you are, the more connected you're going to be, and the better able new people will be able to connect with you. I've been to churches and somebody stands up to make an announcement or do something. I said, introduce yourself. Oh, everybody knows me. So you're standing there making a welcome to newcomers and you say, oh, everybody knows you. Can you not see the contradiction? Most people can't. And so they don't introduce themselves. They invite people to groups. Nobody explains what the groups is. Well, we've got an ABC on Thursday, and then on Friday afternoons, we do an X, Y, and Z. And then everybody loves to come to our QR thing, and nobody explains what it is. Oh, everybody knows what that is. Well, no, they don't. And so if there's a coffee hour, everybody sees who the newcomers are, but nobody engages with them. I've been in some churches where the newcomers are encouraged to get a red mug. So everybody knows that the newcomers have the red mugs. Everybody else has a different color mug. And so the person with the red mug is standing there all by themselves and no one is talking to them. Or coffee hour, you get coffee and cookies, and they give the newcomer a rose. Well, I have a purse, I have coffee, I have cookie, I have a rose. I can't do much but just hold my stuff. The other thing that I see happen is that the newcomer comes in and says, oh, well, why don't you introduce yourself to the group? Tell us a little about who you are. And no one in the group introduces themselves to the newcomer. Not a one. And they don't, oh, well, we don't have time for everybody to introduce themselves. So we'll just have the newcomer tell us. What are you saying? What does that say to the new person? See, if you can let people know who you are, if there are stories that you can tell about the organization and about yourselves, if in, you know, I am an unreconstructed introvert. And so I have a list of things that I can talk about, and it's like a script for me, and I work to make it sound very natural. But I can go up to someone and I can interview them and I can tell them a little bit myself, and I can share something and some way so that they can feel connected and they can remember having had a conversation with that nice lady with the red jacket. See, sometimes there's no clarity about the group. And so you can't invite somebody into the group if you can't tell them what you are. Well, you know, we're sort of spiritual and we're not religious, or we're kind of religious, or we come out of the thing and, you know, well, we're just really into heart talk. What does that mean? So you got to be able to tell people who you are and what you believe and what your core value is, and why you do what you do. Why do you meet? What's important to you about meeting? That's what you share with others that may invite them in. See, diversity work is an inside out approach. It starts with self, it starts inside the person, it starts inside the organization. Who am I? Who are we? What are our shared values? And if you all haven't had that conversation with the people within your organization, then you're not going to be able to accurately, adequately, authentically share about your organization to someone else. And then there is this liberal performativity. That's a phrase that I learned last year. Liberal, around the same time I learned I was BIPOC. Liberal performativity, that is, you're doing something for the sake of showing how liberal and progressive you are, but you haven't really thought it through. So I joined a group and the leader says, so glad Kikansa's here. Now we have some diversity. I said, really? What makes you say that? Well, because you're a Black woman and you can speak with the voice of Black women. I said, well, that's not why I'm here. I don't know all Black women, so I can only speak for myself. And I'm not sure that my Black womanness is the kind of diversity that this group needs. Have you had a conversation about what kind of diversity this group needs? Have you had a conversation about the kind of diversity that's already present? Because diversity is not always seen. It's there, but not always seen and rarely acknowledged. So they had to do a retake on that one. I was working in another organization who put up this huge Black Lives Matter. So it was another church, and it was a church in a residential area, all white, put up a huge Black Lives Matter banner, and 3 times the banner was vandalized. First it was slashed, and then twice it was stolen. And each time the church with great, can't think of what the word is, but it was really important to them. We're going to show them, we're going to put this Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter banner up again. They can't take it down. No one asked the question, why is it being taken down? No one had the conversation about what the message was saying to the neighbors. There was nothing that this church had ever done that said to its neighbors, you all matter. There was nothing the church had ever done that said, come, you're welcome here too. There was nothing that the church said except this very strong statement that was received as a threat to the people who were in the neighborhood. And so by putting down this banner, they were drawing a circle that was pushing people away. And so it's important, I think, to be an ally to historically dispossessed groups, but at the same time, it's important to be inclusive, to not push people out, to not think it's either us or them, but to create a space. So yeah, there's room for you. There's room for you. We want you here. So this work is complicated. It's messy. It takes time. First, you have to figure out who you are. Then you have to figure out, by expanding your world, how you can create an organization with a culture of belonging. That's what you need to do. So I am hoping that we can talk now about some of the things you have done, that you haven't done, questions that you might have, reflections on this whole idea of how do you take this closed group, this group that gels really well, and loosen it up just enough so that somebody else feels that they could come in and be welcome while you're protecting the core values of who you are and what you believe. So let's try it. Thank you. Thank you. Let's try it with mics on and see what happens here.
Hi, Kikanza.
Hi, Shanti.
Thank you. Beautiful presentation so far. So I'm just noticing like the difference. Could you speak to the difference in your experience between like, if there is one, churches like as in traditional kind of Christian, Protestant, Catholic, institutions versus the more, spiritual, and possibly the, what did you call it? Liberal performative practices. I feel like there's a lot of people in the spiritual / meditation yoga world who sort of, renounce the organized religion per se and feel like they're very woke in a way, but
yeah.
But if you could speak to, that, does that make sense?
Yes, I got it entirely. So first of all, if I'm at a church, they're on the liberal progressive side because the conservatives wouldn't have me. Even the moderates don't claim me. So I'll say that. Secondly, so churches are very proud of their exclusivity, and yet they say they want to be, they don't want to be inclusive. They want to be diverse in their exclusivity, and I mostly don't work with them. The other groups that are more spiritual than churchy or religious take great pride in being liberal and progressive, and we're open to all people, and they tend not to see their biases. And they tend to, my experience has been that groups that lead with their liberality often miss out on opportunities to engage. They often miss out on opportunities to truly be welcoming because they're not seeing the individual, they're seeing a representative of a group. I'm going to give you an example. Oh, so I'm at a convention of spiritual leaders and teachers, and it was huge. And I was on a cane, and there were scooters available for people to use to get around. And one woman in a small group I was in, had this scooter that had all these lights and bells and whistles on it. And I love things with engines. And I was asking her about it because I'm like a kid and I was attracted to all the lights. And so she says, well, dear, you can get one. I says, no, I'm fine. I don't want one. I just want you to tell me what's going on with yours. Oh, but you can get one and you wouldn't even have to pay for it. They'll give it to you for free. So she looked at me. The assumption was I'm Black, I'm poor, I'm on a cane, I need a scooter, and was too embarrassed to ask for it or couldn't afford to pay for it. All I wanted to know was, what did that light do? Walter?
Yeah, hi, Kikanza. Sorry about that, Kikanza. I enjoyed your presentation very much. A lot of wisdom. Thank you. I have this habit of taking some notes, and you mentioned 5 big lies, and I numbered 3, and I don't know if I missed.
Okay, let me see.
But
Okay, so we all have equal opportunity.
but the whole thing was that anyway. Yeah.
Did you want me to list the 5? Somebody else said
Well, I got yeah, equal opportunity, golden rule, and more similar than different.
And the corollary to that is that everyone who looks like X are all alike. Number 3 is we're more similar than different.
Right.
Number 4 is that people with similar experiences respond to them in the same way.
Good. Yeah.
And the 5th one is, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that for me.
Thanks for taking notes.
Yeah, and I would just ask this about, you mentioned Maslow and yeah, the very importance of belonging, but also Maslow, of course, did later talk about actually transcending self-actualization. Are you familiar about that? With that, can you speak to that? How do you look at that?
My only response would be that even in transcending self-actualization, my point was about belonging.
Right,
that belonging is a basic need.
Right. Yes. Right. I agree. Yes.
Yeah. So that was my only point. I don't have
okay.
I don't have issues with Maslow. Just
okay.
Take something with which most of us are familiar, and then take it in another way, another direction.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you for those questions. Annie.
Hi.
Hi. How do you say your last name?
Kiyonaga.
And where are you? That's what I wanted. Tell me where you are when you put on your mic.
Oh, I'm in St. Augustine, Florida.
Ah.
And Kiyonaga's Japanese. I'm quarter Japanese, believe it or not. But anyway, it's lovely to listen to you. And one of the jobs I have is as a substitute teacher, which is sort of the wild, wild west. And just I just want to mention that, for instance, during lunchtime, I noticed the kids, it's kind of tribal. The African-American kids sit at one table, the Latino kids will sit at another. It's just what they naturally do.
And the white kids sit at
yeah, absolutely. They all do it. But in the classroom, they're very friendly, but they still congregate together. And I just see this rolling out. And I think it's wonderful how you're making inroads. But what I wanted to ask you, I live in a very conservative area of the country. And there's this huge political divide now. Now, I know NPR is trying to create conversations you know, with liberals and conservatives. And even yesterday when I was shopping at a local supermarket, people were not wearing masks, even though they're supposed to. And I wondered what suggestions you have regarding really connecting with people. I mean, what comes to me is courtesy, just acknowledging their humanity, their humanness. I notice that works with kids, you know, even if they're acting out in the classroom, if I try to meet them somewhere in a space of love, it seems to get through, even though they might perceive me a certain way. So do you have suggestions about this huge political divide right now that's been fostered for decades? And how, you know, last night, the Super Bowl, they had a lot of, I don't know if you saw it, it's a great cultural message. And there was a lot of messaging about unity and coming together, and a lot of that, I mean, that effort is really there, but you do have people of very different mindsets. And I think that's at the heart of what you talk about, and how to connect on a very human heart level to help get through the vast differences in perceptions that people hold politically, for instance.
Yeah. So again, it's for me, it's one conversation at a time. And I have a lot of very liberal friends who spent many years hating certain people, certain politicians. And I suggest to them that hating takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And that perhaps they can use, instead of hating someone, they can use that energy to do some good, or just to do something else. And I also strongly believe that no one is all good or all bad. And so I try to listen to see if I can hear a kernel of truth that I can agree with, or else, you know, if I'm talking to you and I know that you are way at the other end of the continuum of politics, I'll talk to you about your cute eyeglass frames or those earrings, or I'll ask you about your lipstick, and, you know, and connect on that level,
Yes.
you know, and deal with that until we can expand the circle, the repertoire of conversational things. I grew up as a baby boomer. You know, you don't talk about sex, politics, or religion. So what did we talk? What did we talk about? Sports and the weather? I don't know. What did our parents talk about? But bottom line is, find something you can talk about until you can connect to the humanity, and then expand from there.
Yeah, I noticed that has worked. Just,
Yeah,
connecting. Thank you so much.
sure. Alan, and then Clea. Is it Clea?
Yes, thank you so much, Kikanza. It's very, very helpful framing of a lot of these questions.
Tell me where you are.
I'm from New York. I live in about an hour north of New York City, in an area, the Hudson Valley.
Oh, I know Hudson Valley, yeah.
Yeah. So just before this, I was on watching a webinar from a group called Braver Angels. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they are one of the groups that works on depolarizing America through bringing together people who are identified either as red or blue in one way or another, you know, Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals, and so forth. And they basically use, I think, the formula that you really articulated there, that the primary motivation for conversation is to understand, to listen and understand, rather than to change the other person's mind, or even to convey your idea to that other person, which can also be part of it. And I refer people to braverangels.org. They have wonderful resources on there and examples of it. The question I have for you, though, is given the situation that we live in addition to being able to communicate one person at a time, Isn't there an importance of addressing the system, the systemic problems that are essentially there because of policies and laws and institutional systems and frameworks, corporate domination of the country? I could go on and on, but that those things we need to be able to address through actions that involve the group's attention and political action, as well as individual one-by-one conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just not me. So I work with organizations to drive change into the systems of the organizations. I just can't do this. And so that speaks to diversity. So I'm working on one by one, the people and smaller groups, and others of you can work in larger settings. You know, it's my introverted heart. It's just too many people. But yes, we do need sustainable systemic change. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if I communicated otherwise, I erred. And thank you for bringing it up.
No, I don't think you communicated otherwise, and I appreciate what you're saying, and that is, we choose or are given our path in facing what's going on, and I honor yours deeply. Thank you.
I opened up the chat box, and so yes, I know that book, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together? I don't know the author either. And thanks, Walter, for telling us where you are. Alan, you said you're in the Hudson Valley, right? Yeah. All right. So,
yeah.
Clea. Is that right, Clea?
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much. I'm in Washington, D.C., United States. And thank you so much for doing this. I wasn't able to tune in at the very beginning, so apologies if I'm asking something you already covered. But as I'm leading different groups in mindfulness and awakening, just as I'm starting with the groups, getting together with them, I want to do something really welcoming and inclusive. And I'm starting to feel a tension between me even just naming, hey, my pronouns are she, her. And I see the world through the filter of a white, cisgendered, straight female, pretty able, blah, 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 blah. All of that with the intention of being inclusive, I'm aware can be seen by others as virtue signaling.
As what?
As virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling? Well, that's a new one. Okay.
Oh, okay. That's what I've been hearing.
So that's up there with liberal performativity, virtue.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
That's right. And that can be excluding of people who, like, that's not their norm. So I'm feeling this tension.
Also, being cisgender is a virtue.
Okay, how can I be inclusive? That's not the virtue, but naming it, which infers being the same gender that I was born with, is like not to be presumed. Or same gender I was assigned at birth is not to be presumed. Saying that can be seen as.
Yeah. Well, you see, my pronouns are up there. Well, if my name was not so long, you'd be able to see that my pronouns are up there as well. I think.
Yeah, I can see that.
What do I think? I think that every time we try to do something different, someone is going to have a problem with it. I think that if we can engage from our hearts with some level of authenticity as opposed to performance, that there's a greater chance of it being received. I think that starting out with listing all your identities might be a bit much, but if you work it into conversation, that in subtler ways, less direct ways, it may be received better. Most of the time, if people complain about something that you're doing that's making them uncomfortable, it's because you are holding up a mirror of truth that they are not yet ready to deal with.
Mhm.
One of the things that organizations are doing now is recognizing that we are on stolen lands. So I live in Los Angeles, and this is the land that was originally owned, no, that was originally tended to by the Tongva people, and it is unceded and it was stolen and blah, 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 blah. And so some organizations make this huge, big statement, but it's the exact same words every time, and so it kind of loses its impact and authenticity. But recognizing that, you know, we're here, we weren't the first ones here, and you know, we're all immigrants, and we stole this land from somebody who didn't even think that land ownership was a thing. So we need to recognize that. So sometimes it's the way we do it. So if it comes from a place of pride, look at how liberal I am,
Right.
as opposed to a place of, wow, wonder at who I am in this environment, it might be easier for others to receive. And at the same time, some folks will never be happy.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. That was really clarifying.
Thanks. I don't know who was next. Help me out.
I think it was Margot.
Okay.
Great. Hello there.
I see Wes and I see.
Thank you for this. And I'm curious, do you want to go by, for someone who's never met you, Kikanza or Ms. Nuri Robbins?
Please call me Kikanza.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
So my question is, so I'm involved two different realms, but one of the realms that I work in is I work with Native American youth, focus on suicide prevention, and then also I'm involved with a spiritual education, an organization that is very, very white. It's global, but predominantly white. And one of the white people involved made a promotion video that only showed white people from the school, even though there's a small subset of people of color. And I said something about, you know, for our promotional materials, I don't think this is going to speak to the whole world. It's only speaking to, and so we had a conversation on this, and I would love some feedback, because in a way, I think he was kind of thinking it was this liberal performative thing of just showing the few brown bodies that we have to say, like, yes, but that's not where it felt like it was coming from. It felt like it was coming almost from, like, these are voices that really need to be, it was part of the belonging and the inclusivity for people to see just a face that looks similar to their own.
Mhm.
And so still a little not sure how to go forward with our publicity on this and not being liberally performative.
So it's a good point. If you want more ethnically diverse people to know that they are welcome there, I think that if you have an ethnically diverse population, that it makes sense to show it. To not show it is puzzling to me.
Was to me too. And then there's room for another conversation if I was curious about why he chose only the white people to be in the promotional video and not people of color. But he said, I think he was saying, like, well, the messages that they were saying, it doesn't matter. But yes, there was something that was going on there that was that needed to be looked at. but
Yeah.
yeah, but that was my feeling, that just for people of color to feel more that this is someplace for them to see themselves represented in the publicity materials would be a helpful thing.
What
And
I think what would be helpful is to authentically represent who's at the school. Just because there are Black people there doesn't mean that I want to go there. See, this diversity thing is not just for the historically marginalized, it's for everyone. It's also a message to let white people know that if you are trying to stay away from people of color, don't come here, because we have some.
yeah, good. And it also, I mean, I guess would speak to me that if I see an organization represented as completely white, that's actually not something I want to be a part of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I love your reflections. So now it's, was it Wes who's next?
I think so. Thank you for the invitation. I'm going to tell a personal story. May I address my gratitude to you as Kikanza?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm located in Victoria, British Columbia in Canada,
Yeah.
and delighted to be part of this overwhelmingly white group because I think that we're here to learn. And I heard something a few weeks ago that really set me back on my heels. The question was, it's not a question of whether I'm racist or not, it's how.
Mm.
And that question just stopped me cold in my, what was it, the liberal something or other, liberal positivity, no, normativity thinking. And I really had to examine it, because over the years, occasionally I've been able to be aware, whoops, that was not really cool. And so I started to examine, how am I racist? And I think that that's a much more profound and penetrating question than whether.
Yeah.
And I came up with some answers that made me really uncomfortable.
Oh.
But knowing that I had those answers, those observations, awareness is always a first step to healing. So I started to think, okay, what can I do about this? And I've adopted some different ways of being with people. I have also done a lot of work with Indigenous people, love their ways, have learned a lot of their culture. And at the same time, I find myself occasionally falling back into stereotyped thinking, which is a very uncomfortable place to be. And I think that we, as the privileged of whatever stripe, whether it be economically, sexually, the color of our skin or whatever, we need to become really comfortable with extreme discomfort.
Yeah.
And then when we're dealing with people, whether they are of our own group or some other group, another thing that I have learned is, don't be fearful, be curious.
Mm-hmm.
So just ask somebody, what's it like for you?
Mm-hmm.
Or if somebody says the election was stolen, oh, interesting thought. Why do you think that?
Mm-hmm.
And try to be compassionate with it. And the authenticity part of it is so important. You know, I can be authentically nervous about speaking the way I am now, and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And just acknowledge, particularly when I'm uncomfortable. So just wanted to offer that as a personal story that has been really revealing for me, and I hope maybe for others as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Not, am I racist, but how? Yeah, I like that question. Helen.
Thank you, Kikanza. Actually, somebody was ahead of me.
Oh, okay. Who was that?
That's me. Hi, I'm Celia.
Celia.
Hi, I'm glad Margot asked you if we could call you by your first name, because I wanted to know that as well. Thank you, Kikanza. So many things you've said that I want to talk about, but I'll try to narrow it down. I'm in Port Hope, Ontario, Canada. And I was very struck by the assumption that's made that everybody knows what you're talking about in the room and everybody knows what to do. So thank you for saying that. I'm involved, I'm a spiritual director. I'm sort of, one of my hobbies is contact improv, which is a form of dance where you are in contact with other people's bodies and dancing and improvising movement. And it's a very inclusive, conscious community worldwide. And I was co-programming a pretty big contact improv festival in Toronto, nearby Toronto. And we knew we needed to do a land agreement at the top. And we decided that we didn't want to do that, like pronouncing all the names in an awkward white way and, you know, reading from the script. And so we came up with something that really was something like, you know, we were not here first. And this land is sacred. And we got flack, like we got the BIPOC community within the contact improv community were very upset that we didn't name the names and we didn't do the traditional land greeting, land acknowledgement. So we went back and we apologized and we did the right thing. Although some people said, I like the way you did it, you know, and so I also wanted to say I appreciated what you said. If you do something different, like someone's going to be upset. I've also learned from the contact improv community this concept of white fragility, which is like, okay, now I've upset you and now I'm upset, right? Like I've got to deal with my issues because I've upset you. But I did want to ask you your take on cancel culture, because I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but okay, so we've had a number of situations in Canada, sort of big news here where someone says something inappropriate, transphobic, homophobic, racist, and they're out, like it's over. Their career is done. Their friends have like on Facebook and social media said, I don't support this person. And I just heard a really good talk from a theater artist saying like, I don't want to be part of cancel culture. I want to invite conversation. So maybe I wonder if you could speak to both why you think cancel culture is happening and is there a middle ground?
I think cancel culture is happening because we think in a binary way. You're either in or you're out. And I think that it's easier to say you're out as opposed to having the conversation to understand. And I don't think it's healthy because people are getting canceled for things that they did 25 years ago that folks thought was okay at the time or nobody spoke to at the time. So do we cancel the people who were witnesses and didn't speak up? Who knew it was wrong and didn't say anything? I think there was another piece of your question and
Is there a middle ground? Well, how do we?
Oh, absolutely. There's a middle ground. I don't have language to describe it right now, but so I would just say, yeah, something else, a conversation. Education, information. It's related to Wes's statement of, I think it was Wes, who said not whether I'm right or wrong, but how was this wrong? How was this thing wrong? There, you know, cultural competence is also on a continuum from cultural destructiveness to cultural proficiency. Kind of right in the middle is cultural pre-competence, where we're doing the wrong thing for the right reason. And it's because we've got a little bit of knowledge and so, you know, we do this or we do that because we don't quite know enough. We want to do something and we do the wrong thing. And, you know, even Kikanza, queen of diversity, blows it every once in a while, not often. And I hate it when that happens, but it happens. And so if I got canceled, we would all get, for one or two mistakes, we'd all be canceled, but rather, can we learn from what we did? Can we make it better?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now is it your turn, Helen?
I think so. I'm in Philadelphia, and I apologize. Kikanza, thank you for this. And I knew it was going to be a good conversation when I started feeling uncomfortable. I'm learning to embrace that. I wanted to speak to the person in Washington, D.C., and I apologize, I don't remember your name. The question of introductions. What came to me was that expressions of vulnerability can be very welcoming. So that expressing something of one's humanity, I'm nervous to be leading today, or that could be a very simple thing to say, but maybe the list sounds like performing virtue, but to express something of the heart and something of your own vulnerability in that situation can really set people at ease and draw people in and invite them.
I would love to sit and listen to you all have a conversation among yourselves. I'm really appreciating your reflections. Was it Margot? Margot, are you from DC? Did you want to respond to Helen?
There's a woman with her hand up, Ragda.
All right, Ragda.
Hi. Thank you so much for opening this discussion for all of us. And I just want to say that two things, but what you said about agreeing to disagree versus agree to try to understand each other, that really landed, it impacted me a lot, because I say, let's just agree to disagree all the time. And yeah, it really impacted me. So thank you for that. I say it to my children. Sometimes I say it to my friends. And now I really see how limited that statement actually is, And then I, of course, consider myself as somebody who is all inclusive, and, I really try not to be judgmental, and I can, and I know that I have blind spots, and I want to see those blind spots. And so my question to you is, do you have any recommendations on, like Wes's question was very helpful, and I'll sit with that. It's not, are you racist? It's how are you racist? And then of course, coming to things like this and just showing up for discussions like this. But do you have any suggestions or recommendations on how one can discover their blind spots?
Yeah, by asking, what am I missing? And by cultivating relationships with people who don't agree with you. One of my dearest friends just annoys me to my core because she rarely agrees with me. And I've come to appreciate what she does for me, because she always helps me to see what I'm missing. I had two friends like that. The other one was not quite so annoying, but I would say, Bun, blah, 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 blah. What do you think about that? Expecting praise. And he said, yeah, except for what you missed. And so Yeah, having friends who are willing to tell you the truth, even when you don't want to hear it, that helps.
Mm.
And inviting people to tell you what you're missing. Who disagrees? Who sees it differently? Who's got another perspective? Oh, and you've got kids, they'd be happy to point out your biases.
I have plenty of kids.
Yeah.
To point out my bias. Four boys, so.
Oh yeah. Just keep asking them.
Okay. Yes, okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Jaya.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
I just wanted to build on Ragda's question actually about blind spots, because a question was coming up for me about spiritual communities specifically and their unique set of blind spots that tend to come up. And I was thinking about how I often find these conversations the hardest among spiritual groups because there's such a desperation to be good and to be, you know, we're the right ones, we're the good ones. We enjoy that self-image a lot, I think, and a lot of times these types of conversations take a willingness to go into the ugly stuff. And I'm curious, like what themes you come up against in spiritual communities specifically, and then how do you address them?
In spiritual communities, probably the strongest theme is, what about the bad people? What about the evil people? We can't tolerate evil. So let's kill it. Let's damn it to hell. And the other theme is, well, we're open to everyone. We love everyone. Anyone is welcome here. And yet there is an unwillingness to do anything about it, or to see others as needing their largesse. You know, we're welcome to give to the poor, the hungry, or the people who don't look like us, but they don't need to worship with us. They don't, you know, well, they don't want to be around people like us, you know, but we can go and we can write a check. So it is this hierarchy of holiness, hierarchy of, well, yeah, they're different from us and we're open to them, but they're not really like us. They wouldn't like what we do, presuming that the differences that you can see are the differences that make a difference, if that makes sense.
Thank you. That was really clear.
Wes.
Thank you. I would just like to offer my own response to the question that, where'd she go? She just disappeared when someone else. But the question about how to discover areas in which you might be prejudiced. Magda, yes, that's right.
Where did she go?
Yeah. Oh, there she is.
Oh, there she is. There she is.
Popped down a couple of rows and over a space. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows how that works? But what I have discovered, and again, it's part of examining my own discomfort and having the willingness to go there because of the gold that's in that dross. And that is to notice when something that somebody else does makes me angry or makes me judgmental. And then saying, okay, if I hold this person up as a mirror, what is it that I see in them that I'm actually not wanting to find in my own self or face in my own self? Oh, that's another one that I found entirely too useful.
Yeah. So Annie put in the chat, what's a good response when someone claims the election was stolen?
Yeah.
I don't have that conversation. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I just had. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've already been on, so that's why I put it in the chat. But I had family members that just said the most outrageous things about, you know, political things.
Yeah. I don't have
founded, and I just
Yeah.
I just kind of, would you suggest, I mean, I don't think it's wise to try to argue it. It's.
I don't either. I don't
Yeah,
either.
I just kind of let it go. I had that with a brother recently, and he was coming down to Florida, and I just called and said, let's have bygones be bygones, and completely shifted the whole thing because it wasn't worth it. So
There are times when there are people in my, well, before last year, people in my home, and I said, no politics. There will be no political conversations for the course of this evening. So no. And if you need to talk, then just leave.
right.
And I have found that people who take hard positions are not going to be convinced with facts. So why bother?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Shanti's hand is up again.
Yeah, I don't want to take away if there are people who haven't spoken yet, but I just wondered, some of the questions that have come up are about, I think relate to the idea of what I've heard called spiritual bypassing, that kind of, we're all one, I don't see color, all that kind of stuff. I wonder if you could say a little more about that.
All right, so on the continuum of cultural proficiency, that's also close to the middle, cultural reduction. So we don't see differences, we just focus on, you know, our similarities, or we're all alike, we're all basically, and it is, I think it is unhelpful. And it also presumes that there is one best way. It also presumes a hierarchy of normalcy. It goes back to, will I treat them all the way I'd like to be treated?
Thank you.
Sure. Put whipped cream on the cow pie and pretend.
What? Oh, sorry.
In the chat box.
I grew up on the Canadian prairies. That's my contribution.
So, all right. So my corollary to that is never try to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and it annoys the pig. All right. So we've got what, 3 or 4 minutes left. I think I'm going to toss the mic back to Jack, the real Jack, not the one in the beret.
Thank you, Kikanza. There was somebody who phoned in, and I think they started to speak through a few times. So if you're...
Hi, Jack. Yes, it was me, Peter,
Hi,
from Montreal. Hi, Kikanza. I was just wondering, we have a premier here in Quebec who won't admit that there's systemic racism here. And I guess my question is, he's quite willing to admit that there's systemic racism in Canada towards French-Canadian minority, but not willing to admit that there's systemic racism of the French minority towards the different racial and ethnic groups within the province of Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered if you had any comment on that. Because I don't want to paint him as black and white, you know. I don't want to paint him as all bad, and I don't want to make it. I don't want to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, so therefore, if he can't do that, then he's, you know, I'm just not going to vote for him.
Okay, so I hear your question, and I hear you wanting him to do more, say more, claim more, that than he is, that there is much more that he could do given his position of power than he is doing, and it's frustrating. And people, remember, I started out by saying people can only see what's behind their eyes. he can only do what he can do. And fortunately, he's not going to be your leader forever. So let him do what he can do. Sometimes naming things is difficult. So oftentimes I'll say, okay, fine, we're not even going to name it. Can we address this issue here? And oftentimes the people who say, no, that's not it, given the name, will still address the issue. So if you can't go at it directly, use guerrilla tactics. See if you can go in the back door, go in the side door, climb in a window, call it something else that they're comfortable calling it, and get them to address it that way.
Oh, that's really good, because he is, maybe I should just say partially addressing the issue, but he is trying to address the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Kikanza, for that.
You're so welcome, Peter.
Logistically, we need to draw to a close, but I want more. I'm just left wanting more. This is so rich, Kikanza. It's so rich. Thank you for your generosity. Is what's oozing forward, just sharing everything from your personal experience, your professional experience, you're an example of what you speak about, which is what we strive to do on the ASI, to walk our talk personally. And so I'm sure each of us have taken away what is relevant for ourselves, but I think the commonality is it starts inside. It starts with self-reflection. It starts with, how am I racist? And so as we draw this one to a close, thank you everybody for giving an hour and a half of your time for your own growth, me giving from my own growth. Thank you, Kikanza, for helping us along the way. There will be a newsletter with a recording of this sent to you all, and included in that newsletter, we're going to send out a 5-question survey on reviewing what you think of the webinars. We've been doing them for a couple of years now, and we want to know what do you think, and where can we improve? Do we dive deeper on some topics? How do we change them? So we would love if you guys could tell us how we can make these better, and what works for you and what doesn't. And the last thing is that our next webinar will be a non-presenter webinar. It's on March 22. It's already open for registration. And there we're going to talk about peer support for those of us in spiritual leadership, and see if we can take this personal responsibility to a deeper level. What would that look like? And so it's along a similar theme of being responsible for how we are within ourselves, and can we call ourselves out, call each other out in a loving, compassionate way, and take personal responsibility in order to evolve. And so thank you all for your time. Thank you so much, Kikanza. Thank you so much for all you've given us here today.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thanks, Kikanza.
Thank you so much.